Let's look at some graphics and vocabulary we need to be familiar with as we study this unit on lines, line segments, and rays. The first graphic we see is a ray. A ray has an end point on one end and it extends in one direction, and we represent that with an arrow. The next one is a segment. A segment is a part of a line and it has two endpoints. An angle is made up of two rays that meet at a point, and a point is an exact location. Parallel lines are lines that are always the same distance apart and they never intersect. And of course we represent lines with an arrow on each end. Perpendicular lines are two lines that intersect to form 90-degree angles. Of course, a line has no endpoint and it extends indefinitely in both directions. And the word intersecting means two lines or two rays that cross. Sometimes they form 90-degree angles, but they do not have to. Perpendicular lines form 90-degree angles. Let's identify some lines, line segments, and rays. In our first drawing, from Q to R, that, because it has two endpoints and no arrows, would represent a segment. Our next drawing, FB, it does not end, it extends indefinitely, represented by arrows. So that would be our line FB. The next drawing, it has an endpoint A to C, but then it extends indefinitely, represented by an arrow. So that would be a ray. Let's look at the tennis racket. It says, describe the line segment that is formed on a tennis racket. And then I have this line segment and this line segment. These segments would be parallel, meaning that they never cross. Let's look at our map. On a map, streets resemble line segments, and we're going to use the map to the right to answer these questions. It asks me to identify two streets that are parallel to Oak Street. And here I see Oak Street. I want two streets that are parallel. Well, I actually have a couple of different options. The first one would be Pine Street. Looks like it never intersects. I also have Center Street, and I have Main Street. So I could choose any of those, two of those. My next question says, tell whether Center Street and Johnston Street are parallel, intersecting, or perpendicular, and then explain. Well, here I see Center Street, and then I have Johnston Street. Well, they touch, so they are intersecting. Next, it asks me to identify two streets that are parallel. Well, I could choose any of the ones that are going vertically because it looks like they never intersect. I could choose any of the ones going horizontally, like we spoke about in our first question, because they are parallel. And then it asks me, are there any streets that are intersecting, and explain. Any of the lines that cross, that touch each other, would be intersecting, because an intersecting line means that they touch at some point.